Chatting with John from Warrior Adventures Canada today. This is take 2 on the podcast. This is his second appearance on the podcast, and we want to get an update from his awesome organization who takes veterans and members of the first responder community out on adventurous trips in the wilderness to reconnect with humanity, reconnect with themselves, and get some challenging shit done. I really love his charity, and every time you buy one of my books, The Nimble Warrior, $1 goes to his awesome initiative. We're also going to be chatting about how important it is to sprint, then pull back, and get back after it when it comes to life and work. Stay tuned. You know, I've been promoting nimbleness for a long time, and that's why I wrote the book, The Nimble Warrior. It came out of the fact that I got injured and I got stuck in bed, literally couldn't move. And from there, I wrote down a bunch of simple principles that I used in order to get my back loosey-goosey again, and sorted out some knee issues and some hip issues. And it ultimately changed my life for the better. And that's why I'm here talking today with a podcast, with a company, and all the other things that come with it, like better quality of life, better connection with my kids and my wife. And I want to make sure that you know how to get your hands on it. So if you head to thenimble-warrior-book.com, you can get yourself a copy of the book, and it is only for the cost of shipping and handling. So if you head to thenimble-warrior-book.com, get yourself a copy today. I'll even sign it for you, man. Yeah. And I'll get that sent off to you, and you can start getting nimble and getting out of the pain cave right away. So that's thenimble-warrior-book.com. Get your copy today, and $1 goes to our guest today, John from Warrior Adventures Canada.
Welcome to the Hard to Kill podcast, the go-to podcast for military, LEO, and EMS professionals, sharing ideas and experiences from around the world to make you hard to kill. Here's your host, Dave Morrow.
John, it's always a pleasure to have you on the podcast again. You're the second repeat guest on the podcast, so you're in good company now. Yeah, no worries. So thanks for coming on the show again, man. And again, your charity is just something that I really think is something that needs a lot more visibility, and that's why I like supporting as much as possible. And therefore, why don't you let people know what the Warrior Adventures Canada charity is all about, and the awesome stuff that you're doing for the veteran and RCMP community?
Yeah, man. So it's for veterans and all first responders. And basically, try to sum it up as quickly as I can. What we do is we take veterans who are experienced in outdoor adventure, so guys that are rock climbers or canoers or whitewater paddlers or whatever it is. And we take a group of 10 to 16 out on like a week-long outdoor adventure. And during that time, we just teach people mental resiliency skills, mental performance skills, outdoor skills, and then just share these skills together, and just try to give people a boost that are either recovering from PTSD or operational stress, or to prepare people to combat against it, and to have longer careers in the military and first responder world. The way we kind of look at it is to just be like maybe like a finishing school. So people either go to a treatment center or do peer support programs or see a therapist or a psychologist to better themselves, or just get back on their feet after struggling through post-traumatic stress or operational stress or depression or anxiety. And if these people are ready to get back to work or go on to the next challenge, whatever that is, going back to school or to another career, they come adventure with us, and we teach mental performance techniques, like I mentioned. Get outside, get into nature, meet with other people, other like-minded individuals, and hopefully those give them the skills and tools to crush those next challenges and get back at it. As well as the people who are not suffering from PTSD or operational stress, maybe they get some insights, or they get some tools that they can use on their day-to-day, whether they're a cop or an infantryman, to help combat against that, or to recognize it in their peers or subordinates to help people, not go down that path. You shouldn't be completely injured and broken and all beat up before someone gives you a helmet and a piece of body armor. You should
Right.
have those tools, prior to getting into shit, so to speak. So
Yeah.
that's it. Basically, it's a peer support program. Veterans and first responders. We do week-long trips out in the bush.
Man, I really like that whole, you want to call it prophylactic approach. I'm wondering, what was it that, or what was the guiding philosophy for you to use adventure and doing hard shit as
Yeah,
part of as part of this, if you want to call it a system of being, you want to call it prehab or prophylaxis or whatever, to operational stress. What was kind of like the moment, or did you have a moment where you're like, hey man, I
yeah,
think I think we can I think we can use adventure and our skill sets to prevent things like operational stress and PTSD? What was it like? Did you come to a moment where you're like, hey, this will
yeah.
probably
I
work?
think we touched on it last time we talked. I can't remember, but basically, myself and a few buddies, we've been doing these trips, every year. I'm still serving in the CAF, and we'd come back from a deployment, or prior to going on a deployment, we'd go rock climbing or canoeing or whatever it is, and these would be like pretty tough trips, just like fill your bag with a week's worth of food or whatever in a canoe and just get dropped off somewhere and canoe back, or take a couple days worth of food and go hiking and climbing. So they're tough trips. They're not easy vacations, but you're out there doing your thing. And then we were doing one up in northern Quebec a few years ago. I was reading a Sebastian Younger book called Tribe at the time, and I just kind of had a thought on the trip, and maybe having these breaks or these sabbaticals or whatever you want to call them, maybe they're helping me have a longer career and stave off things like burnout or creeping anxiety or operational stress or whatever it is. Maybe having those breaks in between, once a year you do something like that, was helping me and my guys have longer careers in the military. So I was like, maybe there's something to this. Maybe we can bring more people along, share the wealth, and talk about what we'd like to talk about on these trips, and and share it with a wider audience. So basically, that was what we were doing, and that's the next year we started it, and we did the same trip that we were on up in northern Quebec the next year, just with like 10 other people, veterans
Right.
and first responders.
Yeah, we talked. Man, that's it's like 2 years ago. Actually, you're one of the original guests. I think you're episode 20 something. Which is cool because I didn't know where this was going. I was just
Yeah,
happy that you guys were willing to talk to me. I was like, oh, sweet, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And so I think that, yeah, 2 years ago. So over the past 2 years, then, what have you seen? Because you're working with first responders, military, et cetera. So you have a bit more data now,
yeah.
and more individuals that have come through the program. What are you able to see now with those individuals that come through your program? What are they experiencing, and what are their outcomes now?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I noticed as this thing trucks along here is we've been bringing back people who've been participants on the trips that we thought stood out, just in a mentor / leadership role, back as guides. So give them a little bit more
Oh,
training,
cool.
bring them into the crew. Okay, now you're a guide with Warrior Adventures. Come back out, run the next trip. So just seeing the growth in some of these guys and girls that we've brought back that have done the program, that are now mentors with us on subsequent trips. It just giving someone like a sense of purpose or a goal, or when you have people that are counting on you, I think you just kind of operate at that next level. I mean,
Mhm.
if you're just living just for yourself, it's one thing, but if there's other people, kids or other dependents or people in your team, if you're a leader that are depending on you, I think it makes you show up and perform a little bit better day to day. And just seeing that, progress from people that were, on sick leave with operational stress, and just not getting off the couch and whatever it is, coming on one of our week-long trips, listening to our team talk about some of these techniques, and then learning the outdoor skills, growing, coming back the next year, the year after, being a leader, being a mentor, running a trip, teaching classes, teaching some of our techniques, and just watching that growth. So it's kind of been interesting, and I'm trying to think of, like, how big this thing can get. How big do I want it to get? How big, is too big? Like, because now we have a way of bringing people on these outdoor trips and then graduating people into being guides and trip leaders and running more trips and just growing and growing that way. So I've been thinking a lot recently about like what I want it to look like in 5 years. You know what I mean? How much can we take on? But also you don't want to dilute the product, and you don't want to dilute what it is, because it does work well. So yeah, that's one thing that I've seen over the years, and it just more sinking in some of the stuff we talked about the first time, just to go over it. Like when you come back from a deployment, you do a decompression. The Army forces you to do a decompression.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, maybe this is kind of what we are doing for, firefighters, cops, and military guys, is like a decompression, like a once a year thing. And obviously it's not the same. It's not the type of decompression that you're thinking about right now. If you've been to Cyprus and the whole Afghan thing, it's a good idea. This is like the implementation of it was poor. You know what I mean?
That was just blowing off steam, man. That wasn't decompression. That was just
exactly
like partying for 3 days because you haven't done anything in 8 months. Yeah.
So you get all that shit out, you come back to life, you get your feet under you again. I think people that operate that level, whether you're like a combat troop or a cop or firefighter, a paramedic, whatever it is, maybe once a year look at doing something, some sort of like getaway, some sort of, I don't know what the right word for it is, sabbatical or walkabout, or, just go do something, leave your phone at home and go trip with other people and go talk about things and think about your life and think about the direction you're going. Do yourself AER, because you can't run hot for a decade or more on these jobs and just like not do that. You're going to burn out. You're going to explode. It's going to come out. That stress and pain is going to come out in different areas. It's going to come out in substance abuse. It's going to come out in physical abuse. It's going to come out in like depression or anxiety. It's going to come out in all these different ways. You need like some sort of outlet to like check yourself and take a break. And I think, and we all think at Warrior Adventures, the best way to do that is with other people, other like-minded people like you, and do it out in nature.
Yeah. So. That's such an awesome philosophy. And it seems almost obvious. It is obvious. Like, it's like,
no, 100%. And I remember being at the beginning thinking, okay, I need to apply for funding for these programs. And there's a bunch of different foundations, there's Veterans Affairs, all the rest of it. And I'm like, okay, I got to be able to sell it properly. Otherwise, they're not going to donate money to us to run these programs. Mm-hmm. And so I'm reading all these like research papers on outdoor therapy and peer support, and just trying to get all my ducks in a row and really dig into why it works so I can sell it properly. And then when I look at the paper and you just kind of look at it, and then you look at the headings of what we're doing, we're outside, we have no technology, we're with other people, we're learning new skills, we're being physically active. And I'm looking at all these points. I'm like, do I really need to explain to someone why those things are beneficial? They're just like so obvious. We're outside, we're together, we're using our bodies, we're learning new things. Do I need to elaborate on how those are good for the human body or our minds? No, it's pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. And really, people know that intuitively when they see it, when they see the pictures and they hear stories from their friends. They're like, yeah, of course it makes sense. Of course it's good. That's what I want to do. That's what I think I need right now. It's pretty intuitive. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't. I think the idea of treating like symptoms rather than the man is just, it's just how we roll now. It's like, oh man, you got PTSD. Okay, go see your therapist. It's like, okay, yeah, check, got it. Like I get it. Mm-hmm. But to just single that out and not look at the whole human being, is doing a great disservice. I mean, you can look at, Stoic philosophy, the ancient Greeks, they got it. They didn't have therapists. They had a way of life that can lead to healing because it's prophylactic. And on top of that, it gives you a higher calling, and everything is related to being a human, which requires you to be amongst other humans, to talk freely amongst other humans, and to experience and talk about those things that aren't going well, those traumas, those issues that have been bugging you. And if you can't do that in a call it a safe environment, or just an environment period, you don't have it, then that incurs all kinds of freaking nasty like anxiety and depression. And I with all these lockdowns and all this shit with like COVID and stuff like that, like this is what's been affecting me the most. Like I'm thankful that I have a family, right? I can see my family every day. We're healthy, we're good to go. But it's the lack of like regular community interaction. And to touch on, tribe, which I have just up here as one of the books I reference almost all the time, it's that lack of tribe that I think is the most apparent after you've spent any time in the military. And I know you're still in, and someday you won't be, but it fades, and there's a yearning and it's a you miss it. Like it's like something died. Like you had this like platoon or company or whatever you want to, like it was there. Now it's
Yeah.
not. And there's something distinctly human about that. And the philosophers understood that you need that community. If not, you go bananas. And I'm curious to know, like you talked about, you have techniques that you use on your actual trips, obviously aside from, learning new skills like, canoeing and some, I've never canoed a day in my life. Well, that's not true, but I don't really know what I'm doing. Rock climbing, I'm complete amateur, like all these little things, like I'm a city boy. So like, I don't really know much. Like being in the infantry does not teach you anything about surviving in the woods. Like that to get that out of the way right away for anybody that's not in the military. They're like, oh, you must be like a survivalist. No, we had hay boxes and like all kinds of freaking prepackaged meals. Like it's not survive. Like I'm not cutting down trees and like making a freaking lean-to or anything. Like you just sleep in the dirt and that's it. What are some of the techniques that you're using to, either, I'm assuming, help people open up and to just start that healing process?
Yeah, so the stuff I mentioned before, just like those overarching broad concepts of like being together and being outside, learning new skills, are kind of the base, that we build off of. And to your point about nowadays, people use a lot of new techniques and new treatments. There's always the cutting edge of treating whatever disease or illness it is. But I think if you can just go back to like the root problem and sort it out there, then you don't need all these like compounding different medications and pills and treatments on top of things, because you're not really solving the root problem.
Right.
Of course, sometimes those things are required, but if you just go back to like the basics and try to sort your life out, whether it's eating well and sleeping and exercising, maybe that's going to sort out your problem. Then you don't need these all these extra treatments, and then things go wrong in those treatments and need another medication or another treatment to sort out where, the kind of crux of the issue is back at the base. And that's kind of the way we look at it, is just like, it should be simple. Most things should be simple and easy. And then if it's not giving you help and it's not working, then there's issues elsewhere, and they need to maybe get more specialized treatment, et cetera, which also ties into our kind of finishing school motto. People have a therapist, people are taking medications or whatever it is. Well, let's come with us, come trip with us. Let's talk about some of these basic things. And let's just like get our bodies sorted out. Let's be a tribe again, like you mentioned. Humans have been living together in groups for like since the beginning. It's only been in the last few hundred years that we don't operate in tribes anymore. And it's only been in the last maybe like 150 years that we don't even usually live or work with our in our family groups anymore. You know what I mean? Even 200 years ago, you live with your family, you have an extended family, you have a group, you have a village, you live and you work there together. Nowadays, your friends from school don't live near you. Your friends that you grew up with don't live near you. Your family doesn't live near you. You kind of, a lot of people are more shut off, and so that tribe is even more cut off than it used to be in the last, in the 20th century. So once we kind of get out there and we do those things, I think that's like 80% of it. But then we do share techniques and topics, and we talk about things. Something I learned a while ago was that like, humans really are required to share knowledge and emotion. So if humans are sharing knowledge and emotion, then their well-being is increasing. So if you're in a group, like for example, a Warrior Adventures trip out in the bush, we're going to share knowledge. We're going to teach you skills like, hey, how do we get through this rapid safely? And which is a knowledge thing, and then an emotion. Okay, hey, I just had a hard deployment. I had a long year at work. I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, and this is how I dealt with it. And then other people are going to do the same thing. Hey, that's a really good point. I felt similar. I did X, Y, and Z, and et cetera. And this all happens around the campfire or during the trip or whatever. So that's something simple, sharing knowledge and emotion that we like to do on the trip, which is happening without me even saying that. It just happens naturally, which is why another reason why being in a tribe is good. People are sharing skills and knowledge all the time. It's not something that needs to be prescribed or talked about. You didn't need someone like me to like have to think about it and write it down. hey, we're going to go out somewhere and we're going to need to teach each other skills and teach each other or talk about our emotions together. It's just going to happen because you're living naturally together. So that's something that we try to do is, and it's, like I said, happens naturally, is, sharing of that knowledge and emotion, not just the guides and the guys that are running the trip and the mentors, but the people on the trip. We're learning back and forth with everyone at all times. And it just creates like it just creates a healthy atmosphere for everyone. And the brain does need it, and the human does need it to not be isolated and not thinking those things to yourself. You have those thoughts. And those thoughts and those skills and those emotions and those things you're learning about get better when you say them out loud. I speak something around the campfire, something I thought or something I did, and then someone has something that ties into that, brings it up. Hey, yeah, that's similar to what I experienced last year. Or what about this? And then I take that and add it on, and I just grow and I get better and get better through that sharing.
I love that point because, I mean, I'm going to bastardize this, but like from a psychological point of view, if you don't verbalize what's going on in your head, that's how you generate a shit ton of anxiety, and that's how you can start slowly going into a hole. That's the only way we're able to make sense of our own consciousness, is to verbalize. It's so important, and a lot of people don't say what's on their mind. And then it can turn into like a neuroses, right? And especially if you're already suffering, right? If you're already hurting with something, like, it can just keep on compounding itself, and then the negative self-talk can start. Whereas when you say it out loud, now you've put that into the universe, right? That is out there, and somebody can grab it. Cool. And that is literally why I started a podcast. I was like, I got too much shit bouncing around in my head, man. I want to talk to some smart people, some cool people that have a lot better ideas than me and a lot smarter than I am, so that I can kind of sort out my own thoughts and make my own speech clearer and be a lot more precise in my speech.
100%.
And that is a really important skill that I didn't learn in school. I didn't learn anywhere. It wasn't even something that was really expressed to me until I started searching for it, and then realized, like, oh crap, if you can speak well, you have a superpower, because you can convey an idea that you have. And that idea can change everything. Can change you, can change everybody around you positively. And that's something that has really struck me as being important. And, we're talking before we got on here, before we started recording, about what happened in Afghanistan. And, I was reflecting on, my role as to, why was I asked to go on the news? Like, who am I? Like, I'm just some dude that just kind of wanted to get my interpreter back home. And I did an interview, and I was thankful. And then it was like one after another.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of think and say, like, well, okay, what are people saying? It's like, well, you're very concise and you're very to the point, and you're not afraid to tell the truth. And I was like, really? Is that like, does that make you, like, all of a sudden, an individual that people want to talk to? And I think what you're saying here is, like, if like truthful, and honest conversation has a certain effect on all of us, and we all know when that's being said, and when we're in the presence of that. And that's cool, and that's part of the reason why I really want to come on one of your trips, man. I just want to, man, that sense of adventure, that whole concept. Like, the unfortunate reality of the last 2 years is, I think, it's been especially individuals that are, like myself, that are very, outdoorsy, outgoing, like being out in nature, like doing just stuff. Sports, you name it, has been just chopped down. And that, I feel like, on my soul, it's not just like, it's kind of an inconvenience. Like, okay, 2 weeks would have been an inconvenience. 3 months sucks, but now it's like 2 years. It's been to the point where now I feel this weight, and I think it's that lack of adventure. It's just like, well, is this really all my life is going to be like now for the foreseeable future? So you guys are still running programs, right? Like, it's not like you're outdoors. Like, I mean, like, there's no risk of you're fucking outside. Like, so you still, everything is in the summer, right? You start from spring to the end of the summer season. Did I get that right?
I just thought of a few things while you're talking there I'd like to hit on. So yes, and this talking out loud and speaking your thoughts helps big time, not only for mental performance and mental health, but just to clarify your thoughts and just to perform better on whatever topic or whatever subject you're working on. Because when you're thinking about something, your mind makes like leaps and jumps and gaps in logic. It just scatters all around the place. That's why sometimes things sound and seem so good in your head, and then when you say it, it's garbage. Usually it's like the first or second time you thought about that. Right. You need to get it out and then say it and think about how you're going to say it, to put those connections together. And other people help you do that when they give you like little tidbits of information, or they correct you, or they add in their 2 cents. And that's whether you're making like a friggin' business plan or whatever you're working on, or just like your emotional well-being and your mental health. I'm someone who's like anxious and depressed all the time, I'm living in my head. I'm thinking too much, way too much in my own head. And I'm around the campfire on a War Adventures trip, and I'm like, hey, I'm really having a hard time with this. I think I'm going to fail this, or I think this is. Then everyone's like, hey man, like you have some problems, or these are some issues, but they're definitely not as bad as you think they are. And here's some solutions you can start working on now, and we're going to help you. And did you ever think about this? And then now that person said it out loud, and someone's had a rebuttal, and they've had to make those connections and think about it more, it always seems less drastic, or it's not as bad when you say it aloud, and it's not just only in your head.
Yeah.
And so that's why, having a therapist or talking to someone, that talk therapy does work and does help, because it forces you to put those thoughts and emotions out there. When you take it to the next level, when you're doing it with other people that are like you, when you're on a trip with other veterans or first responders who can understand your story more and have similar experiences. So having like a session around the campfire after a long day of tripping, it's just that much more better, because everyone's going through the same thing you're going through, and for people's masks are down a little bit. They relax a little bit more, and they're more apt to speak freely. So yes, 100%, you need to get those thoughts out there.
Yeah.
Something else you said was so coming on the trip. Yeah, 100%, man. Humans are meant to like sprint at working things, not have like drone in a factory 8 hours a day, 300 days a year, and just get a 1 week vacation. Humans work best when they sprint at something, crush an objective, do a big hunt, and then they rest and relax for a long period of time. The best human work and output comes from those sprints and long rests, and especially creative things. So someone in your job, I'm guessing you feel you get more creative work done and get more stuff done than when you do you have like one task during the day, and when the inspiration hits you, you sprint, you do a couple hours work, and then you're down. If you do long, monotonous things a long period of time, it's generally speaking not going to be the best output, and it's just going to be harder on you. Humans like to sprint and rest. So taking trips like that, I think, is a perfect way to have those big rest periods, to do a personal AAR and inventory, and then come back at it with a renewed sense, a new vigor, so to speak. And I have been thinking, now that you mention it, I have been thinking about, and I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, Paul Carroll, about this, and he was the one that got me thinking about it. In the media and in our culture and our world, most of the talk and stuff that happens around veterans and then the CAF is usually like negative. We're having a problem with sexual assault in the military. We're having a problem with veterans that are injured not getting benefits. We have a problem with operational stress, depression, anxiety, and PTSD. We're having a problem with chronic pain. It just seems like there's such a burden around the military and our veteran community. And Paul was like, man, there's so many veterans doing great things, you yourself included. Veterans are crushing it in a lot of areas.
Yep.
It's just like that doesn't really get highlighted that much. And I'm trying to think about ways that we can highlight that and show those people that are crushing it to just set an example for the rest of the military and the rest of the country. And I think what better way to do that is do like some sort of like big adventure with veterans that are like leaders in our community, like yourself or other people that are retired vets that are doing good and giving back to the community or doing whatever. Let's take a bunch of these leaders that are retired vets, or maybe some of them are still in, that are running programs and doing podcasts, and writing books, and all the rest of it. Let's go do a trip with ourselves. Let's share between ourselves and how to make each other better. Each other programs better, and then kick that veteran community up to another notch. So then I don't really know, have an end state to this train of thought right now. Last like a little bit over the holiday break there. But I'd like to see what you think about it. But let's bring this to like positive town. Let's boost each other up a little bit more.
This has been my thesis from the start, man. Like it doesn't do a disservice to the problems by highlighting the good things.
Mhm.
And I think that's unfortunately a narrative that gets promoted because it gets clicks and it gets people to feel sympathy and it pulls on heartstrings. But the overwhelming majority of us are doing really well.
Yeah.
Like the overwhelming majority, and that's statistical data, man. Like we're doing really well, like better than the average. And that's because, you know, we're resilient. We know how to work hard. We've got crazy good skill sets from the military. It's just a lot of times it's like translating that stuff into regular civilian language. And that's normal whenever you have a big shift in your job, or when you have a big shift in your culture. So I totally agree, and I'm definitely down. That is when you're talking about, you know, like ideas bouncing around your head and then putting them out verbally, like bang on. You nailed it.
Exactly.
You nailed it. If that was your first time talking about it, like bang on.
Yes,
well done, sir.
Yeah, so I think we should do something like that, or start leading that way, and figure out how we can, you know, people that are in that community, that are leaders in on the internet, and for veterans, you know, make ourselves better, but then also just like, because a rising tide rises all boats, you know what I'm saying? So the better everyone gets, the better everyone else is going to get, where everyone's going to be moving up at the same time together. And I think there's something there, and we got to figure out how to do it properly. It would be good. And we could do the same things that we do on our War Adventures trip. You asked, some of the things we like to talk about on the trip. I'd like to talk about a couple more. Just one is visualization, which is big. A lot of people have heard it, but just like talking about it some more and putting it to practice, I find helps. Like anything, you could read a book about it. Someone could talk to you about some sort of technique, but unless you put these into practice, it's just going to fall flat when you need it. Mm-hmm. So if we say, hey, you know, you got to do those visualizations, you got to do those visual rehearsals. Let's talk about it. Let's do the ins and outs of it around the campfire. Tomorrow, we're going to paddle a couple crazy rapids. I want you to put it into practice. Okay. So once we get to the top of the rapid, we're going to do a little recce of this thing. We're going to find out where we want to go, what routes we're going to take. We're going to visualize where we're going to be. We're going to visualize us paddling, myself and my partner, how we're going to get through, what it's going to feel like, what we're going to do. We're also going to visualize what's going to happen when it goes wrong. If we hit this rock here that we don't want to hit, what are we going to do? If we go sideways in the rapid, which is no, what are we going to do? And to go on top of that, what am I going to feel at those times? We don't just want to rehearse and walk through and talk through what I'm going to do and when. Because when it does happen, if it's something really bad and you never thought about what it's going to feel like or what the emotion's going to be like in your body, you might get caught off guard. The last thing you want to have happen, if it's something you could have prepared for or thought about, was like, oh, I never saw it coming. You got time to see it coming. So sit there, whether it's a rapid that you need to run or a job interview or whatever you're doing. If this comes up, if this rock comes up at the wrong time, or this question that I wasn't expecting comes up, like, what am I going to feel? Like there's going to be like a rush, a hot flash. I'm going to have all this like sweat coming up and be worried. I wasn't expecting this. Feel it beforehand. So that way when it comes up, okay, my canoe is completely sideways in this rapid. I'm stressing the F out right now. I already knew that was going to happen. So I can ditch that quicker and sooner. I can ditch that emotion quicker and sooner and get on with the action that's required to get past this rapid. So yes, let's talk about it. You know, I can post Instagram little quick posts about these techniques that we use are great. We need to put them into practice, and putting the practice under stressful environments, not in like a classroom walkthrough, talk through role playing environment, which is okay. But if we have to do this on the rock face when it's windy, or we have to do this in a rapid when all our food is in the canoe, then it's a little bit more. You know what I mean? Yeah. You gotta put that into practice in those stressful situations. I think, pays dividends, and people it really sinks in. You know.
Yeah, the whole visualization thing is a superpower. If you can do it well, I know it sounds like the thing is you get like these documentaries on like Netflix, like was it the Secret? You know, it's like The Secret. But the underlying message is 100% correct, man. It is the ability to visualize success in the future inherently starts to manifest itself. And it seems insane when you think about it. It's like, but I'm just thinking about something. How could it? No. If you believe in something that, okay, if this happens, then I know I will do this, or I will feel this, therefore, and you've already pre-prepared yourself. That is like the high performance skill of, of every high performer, essentially. Like you can already experience what you may experience in the future is incredibly powerful. And that's, what I use for my clients for weight loss. Like, hey, how are you going to feel? How are you going to feel in 3 months when you're down 25 pounds? Oh, I never really thought about that. Well, think about it, man. How are you going to feel? You're going to feel pretty good, eh? Yeah. Okay. So imagine that feeling every day of your life for the rest of your life, and you're going to lose another 20 pounds. What are you going to feel like at 40 pounds? And then what are you going to do when you hit a roadblock and your weight goes up a little bit? Have you thought about that? It's like literally every step of the way, if you visualize it, man, you're rock solid, and you can get through anything, because if you look at it from that perspective, you're resilient, you're prepared, and nothing, like you said, takes you by surprise. And that's a powerful message, man. John, I wish I could talk longer, man. I have dad duties that are coming up, so I'm going to have to let you go. But I definitely want to hear more about what you're considering for the group of veterans that are, what I call, like, if you want to call it, the veteran renaissance, those that are, starting businesses, charities that are, pillars of the community, to come out and experience one of these things. Because even if you don't have a specific one like that, I'd like to just come out and have the adventure experience, because I'm definitely lacking it, and I need a way out, and chat with like-minded individuals like yourself, and those on the team. So
I think we should have a little chat soon about that. And,
wicked.
figure something out.
Wicked.
It's a like I said, I haven't. We use the term eddy on some of our trips. Take the eddy, take that break. Eddy's a little bit of calm water in the rapid. Take the eddy, take a break. Reassess where you are, where you need to go, and head out. So you need to, sometimes in life, you need to take those eddies, take those sabbaticals, take those breaks, take a pause, assess what just happened. Confirm where you're headed is still where you want to go. Make a new plan, and then shove off again. So I think we need to, do that.
Yep. Agreed. Where do people find you, man? How do they get either on the program or just more information?
Canada on Facebook and Instagram. Our upcoming trips for 2022 will be up on our website, warrioradventures.ca, hopefully in a week or two ish. And we'll put those on Instagram too.
Sweet.
And that's pretty much it, man. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, man. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and keep on doing the good work, brother.
Yeah. Cheers, bro.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can find out more about training, nutrition, and mindset at davemorrow.net. Be sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram at Dave Morrow PT. And don't forget, strong people are hard to kill.